gentlemen, it's great to see you all here today. Let me start my presentation with a question. Have you ever been intimidated by your own social media? Well, I know there are some voices in your head right now. You say, no, I'm not that kind of person. I'm like, obviously not at all. But at the same time, the other you say, maybe I am. Even if your yes is louder than your no, you're not alone. There are many of us suffer of FOMO, the fear of missing out. I'm Ellena from the Psychology Department of Unika Segio Pranoto Semarang, and I'm gonna talk about this phenomenon in the next 10 minutes. In this presentation, I will bring up 3 points of FOMO. First, the definition of FOMO, then the danger of FOMO, and lastly, I'm gonna give you some tips of how to fight against FOMO. Wow, at the very last of my presentation, of course I will give you a chance to ask a question. And also, I have handout of this presentation. If you need it, you can always contact me. First, let's discuss now about the definition of FOMO. Well, for whoever who still don't know what FOMO is, in simple terms, FOMO stands for fear of missing out. It refers to that nervous or anxious feeling a person gets when they realize they're not attending a social event, either because they were not invited or they just did not feel like going. Like I said before, everyone has it, and I do fall it once in a while. Your parents might have it, maybe your friends have it, your grandma, whoever it is. But sadly, only few of them that actually possible to reduce it. As an illustration, I have my own experience dealing with FOMO. One day I was sick and I couldn't do anything except sleep on my cozy bed. Then I opened my Instagram and I randomly see my friend's Snapgram. She was hanging out with my other friends. That sucks, right? And suddenly I have a thought like, did they have fun without me? Why they choose that day when I was sick? Why they didn't call me? Well, that's one of many cases of FOMO. And I believe most of you in here must have social media, right? And of course, me either. We live in a digital age where you can make connection, have an instant access to other people's life with just the tap of a finger. But with this non-stop flood of content means you might come across something you weren't invited to. Like my story before. And that anxiety is awful. But luckily, psychologists have been studying what FOMO is and why it happens, and they have come up with few tricks to combat it. The basic acronym is thought to have originated in the world of marketing and business in the early 20s. But with the rise of internet culture, it has become a widespread phenomenon. But it isn't the new one. You see, FOMO is really just a modern take on our innate belong to a group, a need which traces all the way back then to our earliest ancestor that formed social group for survival, like assemble maybe in the movie Flintstone. First of all, is there anyone here who haven't watched the show yet? Well, I believe most of you have watched the cartoon, right? Well, in this cartoon, we can see that our species is exceptionally social. We have evolved to rely on cooperatively living in a groups to survive. And that's great! Except when survival relies on inclusion. Being left out may be literally a death sentence. So, no wonder that humans start to feel a bit anxious when they see members of their social group doing something awesome without them. Of course, nowadays you won't live out in the wild alone or will fight a elephant or giraffe to find yourself if you're not invited to a party. But it still kind of feel that way in other way, of course, and you still experience a stress response to perceived threat. Like other fears, FOMO is triggered by activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain that controls the fight and flight response. And that stress, I tell you, hurt. It hurts. It doesn't matter that there is no direct damage to your body occurring. Several studies have demonstrated that the effect of social pain, like being excluded or experiencing loss, really to activate the same part of the brain as the physical pain. While all that explains why we feel FOMO. To understand how it develops psychologically, in more recent studies, researchers have started viewing the phenomenon through the lens of self-determination theory. That states humans have three innate psychological needs for proper psychological development and self-motivation: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Autonomy is the need to be self-sufficient. Competence is the desire of excel at something, and relatedness is the need to belong and be connected with others. Research has suggested that when these needs aren't met, that's when we feel FOMO. And also, studies have found negative correlation between FOMO and psychological needs satisfaction, which makes sense, right? If you feel less connected to your peers, you feel more anguish, feel bad at the idea of being left out. And I think that's all about the definition of FOMO, and we will move on to next topic. Now, we will move on to the danger of FOMO. FOMO causes people to keep their attention focused outward instead of inward. This in turn may cause them to lose their sense of identity and struggle with low self-esteem. But worse yet, when they are struggling with FOMO, that means they are so focused on what others are doing that they forgot to live their own lives. That's sad, man. The National Stress and Wellbeing in Australia survey found that 60% of teens said they felt worried when they found out their friends were having fun without them. And 51% said they felt anxious if they did not know what their friends were doing. What's more, the researchers say that there is a very real correlation between the number of hours spent on digital technology and higher levels of stress and depression. FOMO tends to cause people to spend more time on social media, taking them away from the really important aspect of their lives. Using that time for social media can minimize time you spend with your family, your friends, and also limit your activity that you want to enjoy and make your life valuable. Aside from the increased feelings of unhappiness, fear of missing out can lead to greater involvement in unhealthy behavior. For example, study in computer and human behavior found that FOMO was linked to distracted driving, which in some cases can be deadly. Sometimes we get so caught up with what we are seeing online that we are not being involved in the real world. So that's how much danger that FOMO can bring to our lives. So, what should we do to avoid it? Okay, and now we're gonna talk about how to avoid, deal, and even fight with the FOMO. First, stop using social media. Well, not literally stop, but try to reduce it. This might sound trivial, but it's not. Many of us complain that we have FOMO but keep mindlessly scrolling our social media. This reminds me of a story about a monkey that half thought that his hand was stuck into a jar. But in reality, he couldn't take it because his hand was holding the banana inside the jar. We hate avoid feeling FOMO over in reality, but unconsciously, we are not helping our situation. That's why it's important to take the first step is to reduce the amount of social media to the minimum, especially when we are feeling FOMO or crave to see what other people are doing. Okay, second, be realistic about availability. What you see is not what's really happening. We crave to be accepted on live, so it's natural that most people upload and post the best version of themselves in social media. Almost every post is about having fun, looking beautiful, being in amazing places, and so on. But that just doesn't reflect the whole truth. Everything has its positive and negative aspect. But of course, we just want to show the best part of us. Be careful not to fall into a trap of believing the other's life are amazing while yours is sucks. Because life is not as beautiful as we want to portray it. Third, start a hobby and stay productive. How can you have fun when you're completely concentrated on what you are doing right now? How could you be missing out if you were working towards something you find meaningful and fulfilling? Of course, it's almost impossible to find FOMO when you enjoy whatever you do, when you do your hobby, when whatever you do to live your life. Fear of missing out can become really fun when you do that. And you can do anything actually. You can just do a project, or maybe you try to learn an instrument or play piano maybe, or drumming, or whatever you love. That can avoid FOMO to come. And lastly, enjoy where you are. You probably heard the phrases that happiness is the only found in the present moment. Well, that's true. We don't usually realize that the same concept can be applied not just to time, but also to space. Happiness is not found out there somewhere else. It can only be found here, where you are right now. Enjoy your present situation, whatever that make you happy, maybe watching TV, studying, or maybe just being bored at home. No matter where we are, it is us that's being there. Being somewhere else is not gonna find something you love, and it's not gonna change what we are. So that's why it's important to work on ourselves so we are not feeling FOMO in the first place. Instead, try to resolve it. And I think that's all that I can give you tips to fight or to avoid or maybe to deal with FOMO. Actually, there's a lot of other tips that you can use, but for me, these 4 things is kind of important to do and kind of easy to do. So that's all for the tips.
Hey.
To conclude this presentation, there are some points that I need to highlight here. First, FOMO is an anxious or nervous feeling a person gets when they realize they are not attending a social event. Second, FOMO leads to extreme dissatisfaction and has a detrimental effect on our physical and also mental health, such as mood swing, loneliness, feeling of inferiority, and even in some cases can be deadly. Third, there are some tips to overcome or deal with FOMO, such as stop using social media, be realistic about availability, start a hobby, and stay productive. And lastly, enjoy where you are. Based on point that we have previously discussed, there is no reason for us to be fear of social media. If you find yourself as one of those suffer of FOMO, this is just the time for you to restart your life. Say no to FOMO. Love yourself and believe in yourself. Finally, this is my last statement quoted from W. Clement Stone. Thinking will not overcome fear, but action will. So what are you waiting for? Get out from your own shadow of fear and seize your day. Thank you for listening, and I will be happy to answer any question from you. See you next time.